there, quilting friends. It's Carolina Moore, your favorite sewing and quilting YouTuber. And today I'm working on a project that is a special request from my friend Elaine. She showed me a picture of a quilt block and said, oh my goodness, how in the world am I supposed to put this thing together? So Elaine, today we are doing quarter rectangle triangles. You ready? Let's get started. So I do have a video all about half rectangle triangles, and you can find that here. Also down in the links below, there is a ruler that came out since I did that video on half rectangle triangles, called the Hurty, H-U-R-T-Y. Yeah, H-U-R-T-Y. Anyway, I'll link it down below. But there is a ruler that is all about making half rectangle triangles. I have it. One of these days I will do a video on that as well. But this is about quarter rectangle triangles. Okay, we're going to start this process by making ourselves a rectangle. And it really doesn't matter what the dimensions of our rectangle are. In this case, I'm going to go with 4.5 by 6.5. Do I want that as the finished size of my rectangle? Okay, I think I want to do 4 by 6. That feels like a little more of a standard size. There we go. So I have a 4 by 6 rectangle here. I am going to cut my paper with a rotary cutter. You can absolutely do that, but cutting paper with your rotary cutter does dull it. So you generally want to have a rotary cutter that's designated for paper so that you don't have to change out your rotary blades as often. Okay, so I have cut out my 4 by 6 rectangle, and I'm going to now cut from this the templates that I'm going to need. So I'm cutting this in half on the diagonal, and watch, if magically when I flip this, I have two of the exact same, which tells me that I can put half away and just cut 2 pieces from these others. So before I do that, I want to use the rectangle put together to be able to line up my other half rectangle. Now you can also do this on a computer. There's all kinds of ways to make your templates, but now I have my 2 quarter rectangle templates that equal the same as a half rectangle. So this is the size of my finished pieces in the quilt, which is great, but it's not the size we want to cut our fabric. So I need to make fabric size templates for the half rectangles. So I'm going to take my templates here with my pen. I'm going to draw these. Now there may be acrylic templates out there for making quarter rectangles. There likely are. I don't currently own any that I know of. I do have a lot of templates here. So there's always a chance that I have a template here that already does this, but I wanted to show you this process from start to finish. Okay, I'm going to put this one over here. And you'll see why I'm not having these so close together on my sheet of paper here. Now this is just a piece of regular cardstock. This one has a little bit of a kind of a speckled pattern to it. You can use colored cardstock, you can use solid cardstock, you can use a manila folder, or a magazine cover also works well for making templates like this. And now I'm going to take my ruler and I want to add my 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I could draw this if I wanted, but instead I'm just going to go ahead and cut. Okay, I may not have given myself enough room on that one, so I may have to redraw this one. Let's see. I didn't, so I didn't give myself enough room on this template. I underestimated, and I'll go ahead and cut this so you can see what I'm talking about. So you'll see this end has a point and this end does not. I underestimated how much space was going to be needed. So I'm going to take this here, make sure that I give myself enough space. And I'm going to redraw this piece. There we go. All right. Now let's try again. And we'll cut these out. I'm just lining up those 1/4 inch marks here. This is a little bit of a tedious part in making the templates, and you can make a ton of these templates if you want. I'm only making a couple blocks here, just showing how this block comes together. Gosh darn it, did I do it again? Is this, oh phew, I just barely, looks like I have enough space on this one. Yep, I just barely cut this one right, or placed this one right. So I barely kept that corner. Okay, so these are my 2 template pieces. Now I want to just verify real quick with my originals because this is, whew, so, see how that's so similar? It's a little hard for me to tell. Let me grab my other, here we go. And confirm, yep, that's wrong. There we go. Okay. So I want to just leave myself a reference on these. And so I'm going to say outside edge along here and outside edge along here. Now I need to go ahead and cut these out of fabric, and all of this here is scrap, so let me reduce my confusion and get rid of all of this. And this one is also scrap unless I wanted to make a template that was a half rectangle triangle template, and I don't want to make a half rectangle triangle template. So I'm going to make this scrap as well, and I'm just going to keep my 2 templates so I know what's what. I'm going to grab some fabric and we're going to cut these into fabric pieces. Okay, I've gone ahead and grabbed some assorted scrap fabrics to use, and what I can actually do is layer a couple pieces of fabric on top of one another. Here we go. To be able to cut multiple of these template pieces all at once. No, I'm going to leave that for my other. Okay, so I want to cut this one. Let me bring it close here. And I'm just going to use the same process as before with the rotary cutter because I prefer a rotary cutter and ruler. That's going to let me cut through multiple layers at once. I'm going to line this up. Just give it a cut. If you want, you can pin or add just a dot of glue to keep this lined up. Here, I'm going to pivot this to make it easier for me to cut, and that will mean relining everything up, and that's okay. There we go. Now when I lift this up, you can see it's stuck to my ruler a little bit. I'm okay with that, that's fine. It's just the static of the room that's causing it to lift. Okay, so now I have, we'll call them the long triangles, and now we need the chubby triangles. And I think I'll just cut all my chubby triangles out of this pretty cream fabric. I don't want to waste a ton of it on scrap bits. Here we go. So I have 4 layers here. That'll just give me 4 pieces. I don't need to cut quite all the way across. I'm gonna line this back up. And I have one more cut to make. And then we'll have cut all of our fabric pieces from our quarter rectangle triangle templates. Now that name quarter rectangle triangle comes from, so a half square triangle is 2 triangles that come together to make a square. So half of a square triangles. And a quarter square triangle is 4 triangles that come together to make a square. So each triangle is a quarter of a square, quarter square triangle. So this is a quarter rectangle triangle. Okay, so now because, okay. So I'm grabbing my little sewing box here to see if I have a good marking pen in here. And of course, I don't have a great marking pen in here for this. So I'm just going to use a regular pen with a very light amount of ink. But what I want to do here is I just want to mark which edge is my outside edge. So I'm just going to give a slight little mark on the fabric. And I want to do it all on the right side of the fabric. Doesn't really matter if I did right side or wrong side. I just want all of them to be on the same side so I know what I'm looking for. And that's marking what my outside edge is because this triangle is so similar on the different sides. Okay, so now to make our unit, I'll go ahead and use the 2 that are the same. And I've got an outside edge here and an outside edge here. This would be our fully sewn together half rectangle triangle unit. So how do we sew this together? We'll sew it together the same way we really would any, like a quarter square triangle, 2 pieces and 2 pieces, and then sew the 2 pieces together. But when you take these 2 pieces and you look at how it lines up, it's how do we line this up so that we get all the pieces come together and the points matched nicely, right? And there is a magic trick to that, and now I am going to grab a good fabric marking pen so that I can show you. Okay, so this is just a fine line wet erase marker, which is one of my favorite kinds of marking pens. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark on here the 1/4 inch seam allowance for the seam I'm about to sew. Then I'm going to do the same on this one. Just mark the 1/4 inch seam allowance. And if you want to do this on your block the first time you sew one as reference, go ahead. But you shouldn't have to do it over and over on each unit once you get the visual here of what we're doing. Okay, so we have these 2 lines, and the goal is for these 2 lines to be smack dab right on top of each other. Right? And that's easy enough. Now I also, okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and mark this all the way around on both the units, just as our reference. And you shouldn't need to make these marks on all of your blocks. We're going to do it on this one so that you can see. And if it helps you to do it on a block or two so that you can really see it and understand how it goes together, then perfect. But you really shouldn't need to do this on every single block as you're going around and sewing these. Okay. But this is our visual. Okay. So now that we've marked these all the way around, and I want to make sure that I have my outside edge on the outside edge, we're going to put these together. And when we put them together, we want, oh, how about a straight pin instead of a curved pin, Caroline? There we go. 3rd time's the charm. Straight pin. Okay, there's a straight pin. So we want this point here where both lines are coming together to match up exactly with this point here where all the lines are coming together, both lines are crossing. So we want our intersections to line up. Right. And I'm going to push this down flat. Come on. I know my hands are in the way. Okay, so those lines are lined up, and if you've done it right, the lines would be lined up right here as well. Let's take a look. Right, so these lines are, yep, lined up right here as well. And so what are we seeing with our points? And this is the magic. So what we're seeing is that a 1/4 inch away on this top is exactly that. So let me talk again. So this line right here is our 1/4 inch line, and that's going to line up exactly here. We're not seeing that magic happen on this end, and that's okay, but we are seeing it on this end. So this is going to be our reference when we line these up. So for example, let me grab this one, and I'll show you how I would line this one up without lines. Flip it over. I'm finding a spot here on my mat, because you can do this, but you can do this right at the needle of your sewing machine. And this is lining up. Come here. Right at that 1/4 inch mark. So we see that right here, hairpin. Right at that 1/4 inch line right there, that's where these two are coming together, and that's where they've come together on this one. So now let's go ahead and sew both of these two, the one that I've marked and the one that I've not marked, and we'll see how half rectangle, triangle they look when they're sewn together. Bring the sewing machine over. I'm going to start with the one that we've marked. And since we have it marked, I should probably put my glasses on so that I get a good 1/4 inch seam allowance today. Instead of my iffy, sometimes my 1/4 inch-ish. Okay, let's go ahead and so that's the one that I marked, and this is the one that I have not marked. And I'm going to finger press these towards the darker fabric, which is this pink in this case, and that's not that dark. But it is the darker in this case, so we'll just go ahead and do that. Now if you look, that half rectangle triangle looks really perfect. This line continues on, and I've got a little bit of hitch in my giddy up on this one, but these lines right here, they line up exactly. That's pretty darn perfect. So now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And this time we have one really great spot to mark. Here's my pin, which is this spot right here where the seam, come here, where our seam allowance line and our seam come together. So that point right there should line up exactly with, come here, you can do a 1/4 inch. All right, with the 1/4 inch on this one, which I'm gonna say is right there. So that is our perfect line to line up. We're going to see again, we have these weird nonsensical angles here, and that's just because we have a weird nonsensical angle with our seams. That's just the way that is. But we want to line up this point right here, line up right there. And you can feel right where that is. So now I'm going to take this and bring it to my sewing machine. Now you'll see, and you can see here from the back, I didn't quite get those right. So I didn't quite get it right here. Now we have a couple choices. We can go and rip this out and try it a second time. My general rule with quilting is try it a second time, fine. Try it a third time, no way. So we're going to try this a second time. And I don't have a seam ripper close, so we're just going to use these little scissors as my seam ripper to pop these stitches out. But the great thing about doing it a second time is that we do have this dotted line from where our stitching was, and that would be a reference line when lining these up. Now I thought about editing out what I just did, and I could spritz these with a little water and an iron and try to make them look all perfect again, but sometimes quilting's not perfect on the first try. even if you've done it before, even if you know what you're doing, sometimes it takes a second shot. Even the best quilters own seam rippers. And may not use them, but we all own seam rippers. All quilters own seam rippers. It is a universal tool, and we know how to take other universal quilting tools and use them as seam rippers as well. That's just normal. I did a beautiful job of stitching right on my blue line, though. That's a beautiful seam allowance right there. Okay. So we'll try lining these up one more beautiful time. So I want that spot right there to line up. And maybe this time I'll even use a pin to enforce it. Say, that's my spot. Take 2, to the sewing machine we go. Don't stitch over the pin. All right, fingers crossed, knock on wood. How'd we do? Oh, look at that. That time we got her perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And I am just finger pressing these. I didn't get my iron out today. But we would want to go ahead and iron this flat beautifully and see that, yes, we did get that. Now I press that open. I wonder if I could. So spinning this seam would be a little awkward because of the angle there. So I think pressing open is going to be the best option. Okay, which is what I did. And then pressing this with a good, nice hot iron. But there we go. Our quarter rectangle triangle block, and that's how we put it together to try to get all those points to match as best we can. It's not always going to be perfect. It is handmade. Sometimes it's okay for handmade to not be exactly perfect, but that's how you do your quarter rectangle triangle block. Elaine, I hope that that helped. All right, there we go, a quarter rectangle triangle block. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel, and friends, I will see you right here real soon. Bye for now.